All right, 12:02. We'll begin and admit people as we keep going. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our second Lunchbox talk of the spring 2022 semester. We wanted to start by giving a little background on the Lunchbox project. The Lunchbox was conceived by members of the IGB community and is an event series centered on food that consists of a monthly seminars from U of I faculty, staff, community members that are paired with special meals prepared by our own Bevier Cafe chefs. Since the IGB sits the intersection of science and society, we sought to highlight the scientific connections within food's sentimental value while exploring how food influences our individual experiences. The Lunchbox seeks to create an inclusive community that encompasses people from different cultural backgrounds, and the Lunchbox is sponsored by the Office of Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Archer Daniels Midland, whose purpose is to unlock the power of nature to enrich the quality of life. As a reminder, meal vouchers can be used at any time beyond the seminar date. So if you forgot to pick up your meal or you didn't have time to grab one, you can use that meal ticket at other times. However, if you'd like to eat the featured dish, our Impossible Burger, you have one more day to pick it up at Bevier Cafe tomorrow. After tomorrow, it will no longer be available. At the conclusion of this seminar, a link to a short survey will be posted in the chat. Your responses will help us improve your experience. And as a bonus, you will be automatically entered into a raffle for a chance to win a small gift basket. We hope to see you all at our next Lunchbox seminar, which is Wednesday, April 20th at 12 p.m. And now I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dina Fernandez. Dina Fernandez is the Global Director of Protein Nutrition Solutions at Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, an American multinational food agribusiness corporation. She has 11 years of experience in plant protein research, protein ingredient development, alternative foods, and applied protein nutrition research. She leads global alternative protein innovation initiatives and drives technical partnerships with major food and beverage companies to develop sustainable, nutritious, and scalable foods for the flexitarian market. Dina is an active contributor to the food science industry magazines in the areas of food science, plant proteins, and dairy and meat alternatives. Dina has a degree in food engineering from Zamorano University in Honduras, pardon me if I've mispronounced, a master's in food science and human nutrition from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and a management degree from the University of Notre Dame, USA. Thank you so much for sharing us today, Dina. And whenever you're ready, please take it away. I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you everybody for connecting today. As Julia mentioned, my name is Dina Fernandez, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Excuse me, and I really thank Sarah and Julia for the opportunity and invite me to this talk. Can you see my screen? Just a check.
We can, but if you want to make it full screen, then we
Yes.
won't be able to see the PowerPoint part. There we go. Perfect.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the invitation. I was invited to this fantastic activity on food and culture, and I was thinking, what should I talk about? And I was thinking, hey, a little bit tying food and culture with what we do at ADM for food and how this food is actually evolving the cultures and what happened with the new generations and the food culture. I'm trying to tie a little bit the two topics. And we end up talking a little bit about what you are eating today for lunch, Bevier Cafe, which I'm very familiar with. It was very nice to actually prepare something special for today, a vegan burger for you. So let's start talking about how the new generations is actually transforming the food culture. And before we start going to the facts, let's start talking about food. Food is often used as a means of retaining cultural identity, actually, right? What we consume, how we actually acquire it, who prepares it in the house, who is at the table when we eat it, who eat first sometimes is something that differentiates cultures. It's a way of communications as well. It has a rich cultural base, how we sometimes food is made, what ingredients we use, and why it's called in a certain way. It defines some cultures. And beyond merely nourishing the body, what we eat and with whom we eat it actually can inspire cultures and strengthen bonds between individuals and also between groups, between communities, between countries. Food is a way of communication, right? It helps to identify cultures. Like why we eat is so important. It's so different in different cultures. And I will give you an example, right? And how with food can help us to identify culturally. And I'm pretty sure you know what it is. What is this picture that I'm showing right now? And all of you know where it comes from, right? Everybody knows it's tacos, and usually you associate tacos with Mexico, correct? Some of you may know what is this, right? I'm pretty sure Sara knows what it is. And some of you know this paella, and paella is associated with Spain, part of the culture of Spain. And actually, some of you may know that there are different paellas for different regions in Spain. And some of you will say, this is maybe paella Valenciana versus paella from Madrid, etc. So that is, again, a way of cultural identity through food. Another example is not necessarily just food, it's also beverages. Some of you may know this is associated with a beverage that is consumed in South America. It's called tereré in Paraguay. It's yerba mate in Argentina. And it is very popular among young and older generations, right? And some of you already identify what is this, right? Picanha, associated with the food culture from Brazil. So a couple just examples of how food actually helps us with cultural identity. And I am going to try to give you a transition of what is this happening versus what the new generations are doing to transform this food identity. So if you go beyond what you eat, right, the same examples, and you know how and why these foods and beverages are eaten, you will understand even more of those cultures, right? So how tacos are eaten is very important because it tells you even more information about the culture. Well, tacos are eaten in a very informal way, usually are street foods. Very few etiquette. You eat it with the hands. It's a relaxing way to share with people your meal. You can eat it like as something between snacks, but you also can eat it like your lunch, your dinner. It is a way of communication. It's also a type of fast food, something you eat on the go. It's something that can be associated with tacos, etc. So it's where it comes from, and how do you eat it, that give you enough information to understand a little bit of a culture. What happened with the yerba mate, for example, it's a beverage that actually is designed to share, right? If you are familiar with this beverage, at least in Argentina, even in Paraguay and other countries around, people get together with a container of hot water, and then it's just one pot, one cup, and people share the cup, and it's all about conversation. It's all about sharing. It's all about expressing that you trust a person in a way that you share the same cup to drink a beverage. So communication strengthens relationships. And another very good example of sharing and strengthen relationship through food is paella, right? How do you eat paella? You basically gather around the paella pot where you cook it, and each person with a spoon consume the paella, sharing wines and conversation, and actually you share the experience of cooking and also the experience of eating. So this is wonderful, right? How much we can know about culture about through food, and it's not just what we eat, is where we eat it, how we eat it, the way we eat it, with whom we eat it, right? And what's the purpose of that? Sometimes it's just on the go, you have to take lunch. Sometimes it's just a conversation and a communication, and sometimes it's just gather and share and strengthen friendship or even family relationships, family bonds. So that was a little bit of my introduction to food and culture, but my main topic is to focus on how new generations are actually shaping the food culture, and keep in perspective that the cultural identity through food is evolving, and it's evolving very fast. There is so many factors that are changing that food culture. Globalization, right? The access to food from many other places in the world that we didn't have before. The online reality, right? Especially with new generations, like what social media say about food and how food should be eaten. How social media is actually also expanding the horizon and teaching people about food and what other cultures eat, how is changing and helping this food culture to evolve. People travel more than before, and as a result, we have this cross-culture society that actually mix and blend the food culture and make new things the new normal. So new generations are actually making very popular things like new experiences, right? Cross-cultural food. Now we're blending a lot of foods that in the past was totally totally different way to manage. Like you eat this just in Japan, and this one is definitely from Mexico, this one is basically from the United States. Today we have a blend. The fusion is very embraced in the new generations. What they call foodies, they are open to new experiences, to blend the food cultures. They like speed, they like convenience, and of course they really want food with purpose, food with a meaning. What is the story behind the food, right? So from my latest examples of, hey, this is from Mexico, this is from Brazil, this is, I don't know, from China, this is from specifically from a particular country, you associate those cultures to this food. But what is happening today? You find something like this. And what is the poke burrito? Right? Poke is Japan, burrito is Mexico. Today we have this fusion of food cultures in a new generation of foods that are actually spreading all over the world. So we have things that help to tie relationships and strengthen friendship and relationship. Everything was about this personal interaction. Today, especially with COVID, we have a lot of online interaction, right? We can share a dinner or a lunch with friends and family through the computer, and that is a total new experience that all type of generations are doing, and especially the later generations, they actually really enjoy it, and they live with technology. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions in the middle. So I want to just highlight in the next 3 slides what's happening, some of the facts of the different generations, right? I'm going to focus on 3 generations only because there is many other, some other generations, but let's talk about the main differences between baby boomers, millennials, and Generation Z, and what they pursue or what they eat. So first of all, excuse me, baby boomers that they were born between the 43 and 64. They are very interested on how is the food safety, for example, in the restaurants. With the new generations, you see that less and less, but there are some particular key interests for baby boomers about food. They are very worried about food safety. They are very interested on what is the quality of the food per the value they are paying. They are very conscious of what they spend on food. They love the person-to-person interaction, and for them that is very important, like going to a restaurant but actually see people, don't be interrupted by technology, for example. Like the person-to-person interaction is very important. For them, flavor is king, right? And they also have a stronger affinity for specific flavors and a little bit less of flexibility for less flavors or different experiences. That is, in general, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but in general, they are less likely, for example, to use mobile app to ask for the foods, or they are more comfortable to pay for something where they feel they are cared for. Like they dine out less often. The new generations, actually, it's pretty normal that they go out for food weekly. So it's a lot of people in the baby boomer generation, and actually that is an important market for the food industry. We have about 72 million boomers in 2021, but when you compare the amount of boomers versus the amount of millennials and Generation Z today, they are pretty similar, right? And the new generations are becoming more economically active and have more money to spend in food. And of course, they are actually driving a lot of the trends that are happening right now. So millennials, or Generation Y, were born between the 81 and 96. And they have a totally different way to eat, right? Most likely, they're gonna eat outside very often, at least more often than baby boomers. A couple of facts there is like 1 in 3 millennials actually purchase coffee at least 3 times per week. A lot of millennials consume more than that. 50% visit at least once per week. They go out to a bar like once per week, and more than half of the millennials actually eat at restaurants at least 3 times per week. So why is that important? Because remember, what we eat, how often, why we eat, where we eat, that defines the food culture. And dining out more often is also shaping what the food industry is doing and what the food service industry is doing as well for consumers. So those are very well-informed individuals. They have all these social media, the internet, well-informed. They are so interested in reading the story behind the food. They actually are pro a lot of convenient foods and innovation. And they are eaters. They are consumers that actually are eating later than other generations. So they eat actually, instead of dining at 7, they sometimes dine at 10 p.m., depending on what is the country and the culture. They stay connected all the time. They're eating and chatting, eating and checking email, eating and checking social media. That is perfectly nice, fine and acceptable for millennials. So, and they purchase a lot of convenience. So that's part of their culture. And at the beginning, a few years ago, we saw it like the younger generation. Now they are the ones purchasing food in the world and actually put in the restaurants and just shaping the new culture of food. But the older generation, we need to keep an eye as well. I'm gonna skip the uh, generation X is very similar. It's in the middle of the boomers and the millennials. But the generation C, which is even the younger, they were born between 97 and 12. This generation was actually born with technology. So the generation C, according to some publications, have a lot of money to spend, and it will have a lot of money to spend in a couple of years. There is 7.3 million full-time workers from the Generation C in North America, in the US at the moment. So they are very economically active. So they have the power to spend in food, and food is a priority for them. So they snack a lot. This is the generation of the snacking. They are actually very driven for wellness and nutritious foods. So the market for health and wellness and nutritious food, it just exploded, right? We are talking about a generation that go to restaurants a lot, and they leave a lot of money in restaurants, food service traffic. In 2018, actually 1/4 of those consumers were Generation Z. So that is a lot, and it's growing. So they really pay for gastronomical experience. It's all about the experience. It's all about the story behind the foods. They dine 3-4 times per week out. And they love online ordering, fast foods, and delivery. Now, they are very picky with how fast the food can be served. It's all about speed. So again, convenience, they're adventurers, they like technology, they like local food. Again, food with story, everything that is wholesome ingredients and related to the ancient civilization, how our ancient were eating, sustainable food, other trends like organic and all plant-based or alternative foods are trends that the Generation Z is driving. So all these new needs from new generations are also shaping the food industry, right? The way we create ingredients and the way we create food. I work in a company that is constantly looking for what the consumer wants, because what the consumer wants translate on what are the new products going to supermarket, and those products in the supermarket need specific ingredients with a specific performance, with the specific nutrition requirements. So we have to keep an eye of what is happening in the new generations. Are they really sticking to the same way of consumption, or how much they are really changing? Are we just changing the story and just stick to the same good, very good tasting food, or they are actually asking for more? And we constantly need to listen in. As you see, you can start just going to the supermarket. You can remember what happened in the supermarket 10 years ago. And now the supermarkets are organized in so many different ways. It's like they need a lot of information. Now you see these aisles in the supermarket with a lot of nutrition information. You can actually find barcodes and go with your cell phone and understand where that product was produced, and just a whole system of traceability and it's information you can find out in the supermarket. They are willing to pay more for information. They are willing to pay more for better ingredients and better foods. Honesty is so important for new generations. It's like, you have to tell me what is in food. Don't hide anything. The moment they identify products that actually you cannot trust, they just stop eating them. It doesn't matter if it's good. Reach them early. It's like the new things are a success with new generations. So food companies are in this race of bringing the new thing to the market, because if you reach the consumer earlier, the new generations stick to them. And highlight sustainability. How are we making food, and how responsible we are on the use of our resources? That is a nice story that new generations are more conscious about, and a lot about healthier and more sustainable foods are a thumbs up. So you can see new grocery sections in the supermarket. Now you see the plant-based sections, right, in Walmart and Kroger, and in your local supermarkets. You see virtual grocery stores. You see smart labels where you can get actually all the information about the company, where it's produced. You can go even to know what's the farmer that was producing the raw material for that food. It's all about technology and have that information accessible to new generations. So as a result, right, the new food culture actually is triggering growth and innovation in the food industry. There is a lot of potential growth that is going to happen, and it has been happening the last, let's say, 5 years, and it continue happening, right? And it's not in food, it's also in pet food. The flexitarian market, I don't know if you're familiar with the word flexitarian. The flexitarianism is this culture of consider options, right? Especially plant-based versus animal-based. So today in your lunchbox, you're gonna find a vegan burger made by a company called Impossible Foods, and basically they have pioneered a new culture of food, like the food with a story behind it. It's about sustainability. They use ingredients that are more sustainable compared to animal-based proteins, and I will give you a couple of facts why. What is that story? And also it's about the positive impact in nutrition. So plant-based is usually associated with positive health and wellness impact. So things have changed, and across markets, consumers actually believe that plant proteins are more beneficial than animal-based proteins, especially on new generations. And it's across the entire world, as you can see here. So we made a research to try to understand what is those attitude toward a plant-based. And as you can see here, every country is different. I will say most of the innovation and activities on more sustainable, nutritious foods based on plant ingredients happening in Europe, but they started way before than the Americas in that regard. But it's growing pretty fast, and also the willingness to try new plant-based foods is growing, and is driven by the new generations. And most flexitarians globally are trying to increase their intake of plant-based foods, especially in the US, in China. And again, the new generations in US and the new generations in China are driven a lot of these new food trends. And as you can see, it's not just vegan and vegetarian, it's a lot of the flexitarian. And actually, most of the activity happening in the flexitarian market is like the people that is, yes, it's eating meat, but it's also having alternatives, right? And flexibilizing their diets to try something new, and how these meatless days or just have more dietary diversity. So plant protein nutrition message resonate with new generations, right? Many of you, if you are in the food science area or the nutrition area, you may be familiar with all these messages, like complete nutrition, is plant-based, is satiety promoted by proteins, is muscle health and healthy aging, and a lot of related to sport nutrition. There is an interesting phenomenon today. There is an explosion of innovation in sport nutrition, but most consumers of sport nutrition foods today, they are not athletes. They are normal people like you and me that consider that consuming more protein is better for you, especially if it's plant-based proteins. But it's also about dietary diversity, right? New generations are a little bit tired of the same, so they are willing to try all this new grain or these new beans that is usually produced, I don't know, in South America or in Africa, but that's something that adds the richness to your diet with dietary diversity. And the sustainability story, right, behind plant-based foods, it's just food with purpose. And the purpose here for new generations is to be responsible with the next generation coming, right? And start with the efficient, how efficient we are with the natural resources. And this is just one example. How much can we produce in 1 acre of land? Land it has its limits, especially agricultural land, and how efficient we are to produce protein per acre of land is something that most food companies are measuring, especially if they are into the flexitarian market. So an example, in 1 acre of land, you can produce 20 pounds of beef protein, while you can produce more than 300 pounds of soy protein. So, and we're talking about high quality protein in this case, and those differentiation, how many people can we feed with plant-based versus animal-based food products? And you can make the math, it's definitely significantly more. And remember that there is a lot of places in the world where people still lacking protein and calories, and we are fighting two different battles, right? The battle of scarcity versus the battle of obesity in some other populations. But this is one of the stories behind plant-based food, vegan foods, vegetarian foods. What you are eating today is actually a vegan burger. It's made with plant-based proteins. It's actually produced by our company, our chef Daniel's Midland, and the ingredients are produced in IBM, and the burger is actually produced in a company called Impossible Foods. But what's the message behind, right? Is the reduction in carbon emissions, is food that is produced in a more efficient way, using less energy, less water, and we use less land to produce the same amount of protein and the same nutrition in general. These messages have becoming more and more popular, and actually there is more emerging research behind the different ingredients that goes into food to actually support the sustainability and the nutrition value of this nutrient. So we can see what happened in the market. We have more and more new product launches that say they are plant-based, they are vegan, they are vegetarian, or they are animal-based, protein-free. So they are trying to go into more the plant-based, and there is more demand for it. And as I mentioned, as you can see there, the green bars, in the last couple of years, Europe is driving a lot of innovation, but it's also followed by Asia. Asia is driving significantly the innovation in the plant-based space, but North America is growing very, very fast as well. And I wanted to take a couple of minutes about to talk about COVID and how COVID actually have changed and have made this food culture have some modifications, right? You know, plant-based nutrition have been accelerated by COVID actually, and these trends that are appealing to new generation have been accelerated by COVID. There is like a little bit more openness to consume plant-based foods because of the pandemic, and there is globally a perception of that, you know, some of these pandemic can come from animal-based sources, grown or true. It is the result on the consumer today, and so they are more willing to try plant-based foods. COVID also have accelerated all these technology-driven food culture, like accelerate the innovation on healthier alternatives, convenient foods, and a lot of technology, a lot of information have been catapulted these days of COVID. So I'm pretty sure you never saw so much information about food. People never give reviews about food ever in the last 2 years. So social media and technology have driven a lot of improvements in some of these products lately. So the other thing to consider during COVID actually is that consumers have become more conscious, right, about health and immunity. And they associate the consumption of plant-based with better for you. And some people that actually was not willing to try plant-based food now are willing to try plant-based food. So if you see here, this is just during the pandemic in different regions of the globe. And the question was if they were more conscious, right, about their health and their immunity during COVID times, and if they are doing something about it. And also if they are willing to try new things to boost immunity and health. And some other data here, one of the most interesting is that 18% of the US alternative protein buyers purchased their first plant-based meat alternative during COVID. So it's just as a result of, hey, let's try something that is better for you. And COVID have triggered and have accelerated that behavior. In Europe, consumers actually have increased their intake of plant-based alternative meats, especially in Germany and the UK. Netherlands have become very, very active. And most importantly, 80% of these consumers state that they will continue consuming plant-based meats, like the ones you're tasting today. So there is a lot of trends happening, right? And this is just one of the sources. In 2021, right, we have a lot of plant-based snacks. Now you go to the supermarket and you can taste quinoa chips, right? Or a combination of lentil, garbanzo, and beans chips that you didn't have a lot before. So consumers are looking for more snacks and more variety in their snacks. And most of that variety comes from plant-based proteins. Another very interesting trend is people is paying more attention to the macronutrient matching on plant-based foods. So is this Impossible Food burger the same as a beef patty, right? That probably you're gonna get from the meat lab, from the meat lab in you buy. And companies are paying a lot of attention to match calories, to match protein, to match some other nutritious constituent in their formulas. The other very good trend is new ingredients, right? Our new generations are asking for different things, like who knows about sacha inchi protein? Well, if you go to the supermarket, I'm pretty sure you're going to find some shakes that contain sacha inchi in combination with other ingredients. Maybe some of you don't know about it, but they are trending, right? These new ingredients that nobody knows. Yeah, there is more quinoa, more chia, more wholesome ingredients. We are actually seeing a lot of more pea protein-based foods and chickpea-based foods. Well, in the past, it was just a novelty. Now they are becoming more and more normal in some of our foods. We have seen a new innovation in seafood. Now you can find a plant-based shrimps, a plant-based tuna in the supermarkets. They are still growing, but it's a new era for the plant-based seafood. More sustainable seafood is something that is growing but very, very, very fast. Now we're going to see more plant-based cheeses. I will say in the last couple of years, the food industry have worked extensively to try to identify the best technologies for plant-based cheese. There is no doubt that dairy proteins are extremely functional, extremely nutritious, and extremely delicious as well. And the plant-based innovation still and will continue working until we get to the point where the cheeses are more competitive with dairy cheeses. But you have seen in the market, go to the supermarket, and 5 years ago you see one option for plant-based cheese. Today you have 5 or 7, and they will continue working on bringing more innovation in dairy alternatives in general. So now you see more and more plant-based beverages with unique positions, and it's all about the story, right? Different levels of proteins, beverages that have botanical extracts, better for you to boost your immunity, to boost your health. So there is new positionings on plant-based beverages. They have been there from soy milk that have been there forever. Now we see 50 different varieties of soy milk. We see blends of plant-based proteins into beverages with better nutrition. And all of that is driven by new generations. And last but not least, we also have seen a lot of supplements that are getting a lot of attention on and getting plant-based claims. So again, plant-based, alternative foods, and vegan, vegetarian, sustainable, and nutritional foods are one of the top evolutions that the new generations bring to our food culture. And my last slide is this. It's just a big picture, right? What is happening, right? Examples of where we went in these pictures here, from just soy milk all the way to have 20, 30 different type of dairy alternatives, right? And this is not just for the people that is lactose intolerance. Now is the new generations wanting new things, wanting new ingredients, wanting more sustainable and nutritious foods, right? Now we can find egg alternatives as well, still working on those as well, but definitely meat alternative, chicken that is not chicken, sustainable options for sausages, patties, ready meals that are made fully with plant-based ingredients. Even in sport nutrition, where it have been dominated by whey proteins, now we see a lot of alternatives out there that have matched and try to optimize those ingredients for sport nutrition. And again, a lot of non-athletes are consuming sport nutrition products, and this is a good example where the market on plant-based is going. All right, so with that, I will be open for questions. And just to mention that the burger you are eating this is one of the pictures here to the left. And again, it is just a vegan, maybe vegan vegetarian patty made with soy protein isolate plus texturized soy protein concentrate. And it has a technology that have done a very good job to mimic the flavor and the texture of meat. And many companies are working on solutions for chicken applications, for fish, for sausages, and for all kinds of products, even for whole cut meat products like the whole muscle products. And that, I would say, is the next generation coming our way in the next couple of years. All right, I will stop there and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're open for questions. Feel free to message them to me privately or put them in the chat, as well as you are totally invited to unmute yourself and ask the speaker the question that way as well. And in our chat, there is a link to our feedback form if you would like to be entered to win our gift bag. I did have a question just to sort of start off with. This has been a lot of interesting information. I was just wondering, you said you sort of started this process with a degree in food engineering. Did you always want to go into nutrition, or was there something that sparked your interest to start into this pathway?
Well, yes, I think food in general, right? Even if you tackle from engineering, technology, food chemistry, food analysis perspective, is always surrounded around nutrition. And I think for me, it was a very good match, like understanding how to produce the food, how to analyze the food, all the way of why we eat the food, it was a good match, and it helps you to have the whole picture, right? About producing new foods, producing new ingredients, what the food industry really need. It worked very well for me.
We have one in the chat here. This person says, thank you, Kelsey. I think she says, I think around slide 8, you were showing attitudes towards plant-based protein, and Brazil especially was really high. Why do you think that is? I confess I never would have guessed that.
Yes, actually in Latin America, Brazil is one of the most active markets for plant-based innovation. You know, again, it's all about culture, right? There's this culture that takes a lot of care about themselves and very conscious about health and wellness and being good. It's also a big country with a lot of money to spend in food, and innovation is happening relatively fast than other countries in Latin America. I would say the 3 hubs of innovation in Latin America is Brazil, Mexico, and probably Chile or / Argentina.
I have a question, Dina. All these plant-based product and alternatives, I think for some people or some researchers, especially in academia, it's kind of seen like an elitist kind of market, so that only maybe some people can afford. If you go to different supermarkets, you see they have different options, and these options maybe they're only in some of those areas. Do you see this as it grows, maybe the prices will be more accessible to a larger population?
Absolutely, and that's the objective of ADM in the food industry at the moment. We started like a niche, right? And of course, it's a high value food product that will continue decreasing in price the more efficient we are on producing the ingredients and also on producing the food. And again, as any innovation, any new technology at the beginning is so expensive, right? Because we are testing the market, we are trying to educate consumers. There is a learning curve, not only in us as a food industry, it's also the learning curve of the consumer, trying to get used to new flavors, new texture. And the more mainstream we can get these ingredients, the lower the cost, and it can go beyond to other populations. It is a process. I would say these products are significantly cheaper than 5 years ago, and it will continue to be more accessible moving forward. And I think new generations are driving that, because the more consumption and the more this flexibility to new flavors and textures we have, the faster we'll go mainstream. It was, for example, with the older generations, a little bit more difficult to go mainstream because they have less flexibility for the new flavors, new color, new ingredients. And now the newer generations are getting new patterns of what is good, what is good versus what is bad, especially for flavor. 5-10 years ago, we had to produce something exactly like meat. It has to taste exactly like meat. And today they have more flexibility to have different flavors and a different texture. So I think it's evolving, and hopefully we'll do it faster in the next 5 years. Right. So if you don't have any other questions, well, I'm happy to connect with you. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm also happy to share the presentation with you if you are interested.
Thank you so much. One more round of applause. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Dina.
Excellent. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.